2 weeks before my wedding, my mom called with what she described as a small favor. In my family, that phrase is usually a warning sign. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "we need to make a slight change to the wedding plans." I was holding the seating chart when she said it, already feeling uneasy. If this story pulls you in, don't just keep watching. Subscribe and stay with me till the end. Change what exactly? I asked. It's about Emily. Of course it was. My younger sister Emily had always been the center of everything. Birthdays, celebrations, even random family dinners somehow became about her. Nothing ever escaped her spotlight. "What about her?" I said. "She's going through a rough time," Mom explained. "Her boyfriend just broke up with her." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied, trying to stay calm. "But what does that have to do with my wedding?" There was a pause. "Well, she feels like it would be too emotionally difficult for her to attend." I waited, already sensing where this was going. "So we were thinking," Mom continued slowly, "maybe you could push the wedding back a few months." I actually laughed. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. "Mom," I said firmly, "there are 300 guests invited. The venue is booked. The catering is already paid for." "I know," she said softly, "but family comes first." Family, that word again. "And I'm not family?" I asked. "That's not what I meant," she replied, but it was exactly what it sounded like. When I told my fiancé Daniel, he just stared at me like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "They seriously asked you to delay your wedding because your sister is upset?" he said. "Basically." He shook his head. "That's completely insane." I agreed, but I didn't realize yet that this was only the beginning. 3 days later, my wedding planner called me, her voice full of panic. "There's an issue with the venue booking," she said. "What kind of issue?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "It's been canceled." My heart dropped instantly. Canceled? By who? "The request came from someone claiming to represent your family." I already knew the answer before she said it. "Your mother." My chest tightened. Apparently my parents had told the venue the wedding was being postponed due to family reasons. I sat there in shock. Daniel took my phone and immediately called the venue. Within minutes, we confirmed everything. The booking was gone, the deposit had been returned, and the date had already been given to another couple. Just like that, my wedding had been erased. I called my parents right away. Mom answered like everything was normal. "Oh, honey," she said, "we were going to talk to you about that." "You canceled my venue," I said flatly. "We just thought it would be better to wait for Emily. She's struggling," she added. I looked over at Daniel. He was furious. And strangely, that's when I became completely calm. "Okay," I said. Mom sounded relieved. "Oh, good. I knew you'd understand." "Yes," I replied quietly. "I understand perfectly." After I hung up, Daniel studied my face. "What are you thinking?" I smiled. "Pack a suitcase." "For what?" "Our honeymoon." He frowned. "But the wedding?" "It's still happening," I said. "Just not here." He raised an eyebrow. "Where?" I opened my laptop and searched for flights. Then I typed one word: Bali. While my parents were busy trying to control my wedding, they had no idea I was about to disappear completely. Daniel stared at the screen. "Bali? In 3 days?" "Yes." He leaned back, still trying to process everything. "Your parents cancel our venue, and your solution is to fly across the world?" "Not exactly," I said. "The venue is gone, not the marriage." He looked at me carefully. And then it clicked. "You're serious," he said. Within 2 hours, everything was arranged. Flights booked, a private beach ceremony set up through a resort, a local officiant, 2 witnesses provided by the hotel. Simple, peaceful. Everything my original wedding wasn't anymore. But before leaving, there was one more thing I needed to handle. I called my lawyer, Marcus, who had handled my legal matters for years. I explained everything: the cancellation, the interference, the reason behind it. He listened quietly, then asked one key question. "Do your parents have any legal authority over your wedding arrangements?" "No." "Did you give them permission to cancel the venue?" "Absolutely not." There was a slight pause. I could almost hear him smiling. "Then that's a serious issue for them." "What do you mean?" I asked. "The contract with the venue is in your name," he explained. By canceling it and claiming to act on your behalf, they misrepresented themselves. I blinked. And that matters? It matters a lot, he said. They interfered with a legally binding agreement. Even though the deposit was refunded, it still created legal complications. In simple terms, they made a decision they had no right to make. Daniel raised his eyebrows. So what happens now? That depends on what you want, Marcus replied. I thought about it. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted peace. Nothing aggressive, I said, but I want it officially documented. Understood, Marcus said. I'll contact the venue and clarify responsibility. Your parents may receive formal notice explaining their interference. Daniel chuckled. They tried to sabotage your wedding, and now they're getting legal documents. Pretty much, I said. The next morning, we headed to the airport. We didn't tell my parents. We didn't tell Emily either. By the time our plane took off, my phone was already flooded with messages from Mom, Dad, even Emily. Apparently, the wedding planner had contacted them after Marcus reached out to the venue. They were suddenly very confused. I turned my phone to silent and leaned back in my seat. Daniel squeezed my hand. Any regrets? I looked out the window at the clouds below. Not a single one. 12 hours later, we landed in Bali. Warm air, ocean breeze, palm trees everywhere. It felt like stepping into a new life. 2 days later, Daniel and I stood barefoot on a quiet beach at sunset. Just us, 2 witnesses, and the sound of waves. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Daniel smiled. "Best wedding escape ever," he whispered. I laughed. But thousands of miles away, my parents had just opened a letter from my lawyer, one that clearly explained what happens when someone interferes in a wedding they were never meant to control. 3 days after our beach ceremony, I finally turned my phone back on. Dozens of messages appeared instantly, most from my parents, confused, angry, demanding answers. But one stood out. My father had written, "We received a letter from your lawyer. What is this?" I smiled slightly as I sat on the balcony of our resort. Marcus had done exactly what he promised. The letter made everything clear. Canceling my venue without permission was considered interference with a private contract, and most importantly, my parents had no authority over my decisions. That evening, my mom finally called. "You actually went through with the wedding?" she asked. "Yes," I replied calmly. "Without us?" "You canceled it," I reminded her. There was a long silence. Then I said one final thing, something I knew she wouldn't forget. The next time someone tries to control my life, they should remember something simple. The wedding still happened, just without the people who tried to stop it.